Hello and a warm welcome to South to North, coming to you from Johannesburg. What do space travel, chaos theory, skyscrapers have in common? They all involve mathematics. If that's a word that fills you with fear, you are not alone. According to a pair of researchers in Chicago, fear of maths can activate regions of the brain that are linked to physical pain. So why are we girls in particular so scared of sums? And what impact is this having on education? Today in studio, I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, Vice Principal of Research and Innovation at the University of South Africa, as well as the 13th World Chess Champion Grandmaster Garry Kasparov and Junior Chess Champion Tshepang Tlale. Well, Garry and Tshepang be my guests. They've kindly agreed to play a game, so let's get them going while I start talking to the professor. Professor, let's start talking about mathematics. Why are so many people so afraid of maths?
I mean, firstly, it's a perception. Secondly, it's the fact that many people, oftentimes in high places, talk about mathematics as a subject that is okay to do badly in. I mean, if you have a CEO of a company that you respect highly, suddenly stands up on stage in a hall full of people and says, I was never good at maths, people are saying, wow, and look at where he is. So even good people like those can't do mathematics. So I think the advocacy for mathematics hasn't been good. But I think the second thing is the fact that mathematics, unlike a subject like history, is very connected, is hierarchical. If you miss out the maths at grade 4, let's say you just miss out the understanding of fractions, algebra becomes difficult. Just basic algebra becomes difficult. When basic algebra, if you miss out basic algebra, linear programming becomes difficult. Calculus becomes difficult. So because it's linked, it makes it difficult. It requires you to understand every step of the way.
Were you ever scared of maths?
I was never scared of maths, and that's the thing about advocacy. Because when I grew up, my parents never talked about maths as something difficult. In fact, I had no idea that my brother didn't do mathematics until I was at university, and he was also at university when he graduated. And I was like, wow, so he didn't do maths at high school. It wasn't something that was spoken about as something not to do or to do. So we were expected to be excellent in what we are doing. And I think it's because my parents never positioned maths as something special. It was just one of those subjects that you have to be good at, and you practiced it. Just like my brother had to do history, I had to do maths.
I'm feeling so sad now because I'm remembering my high school and me dropping maths in the final year of school, and everyone making me feel like it's okay. Of course, everyone drops maths because it is so difficult. But let's talk about the stereotypes that boys are better at mathematics than girls. You definitely debunk that stereotype, but is there truth to that stereotype?
There isn't truth. There isn't truth, actually, because, I mean, it's a perception again. Because if you look at how girls are doing at high school and how girls are doing at university, I mean, the figures are changing. More and more girls are getting into science degrees at university. If you look at the PhD degrees, students taking PhD, up to PhD science degrees, you get more and more students going in. And the debate now is that happening because we're supporting more girls? Financially, because there are more bursaries for women than there are for girls.
But historically, it's been boys doing maths.
But remember that patriarchy has always been there, not because of mathematics. So boys have always been given the more opportunities than girls. So is this about mathematics, or is it about patriarchy, the history of patriarchy that we have in this world? That idea that boys are better at maths than girls are is not consistent. You don't get it all the time. So we cannot just generalize. And we have to look at where does it come from. It was there in the past, very dominant in the past. Was it because of what was happening socially, or was it specifically about mathematics?
What barriers have you identified to teaching and learning maths?
Okay, look, success in mathematics is impacted on by different factors. We said language, but I said discipline. How much time do our children spend on task? The Asian children spend much more time on task than our children. Our children they have 7 or 6 periods a week of mathematics. Asian children have that, more periods per week, and then they have after-school classes. So they get more time just focusing on mathematics. And the 10,000 hours of practice apply here. If you want to gain expertise in anything, you've got to spend time on it. And mathematics, you've got to practice. So they get ahead, firstly on time, on task. And that requires discipline.
Why didn't I meet you when I was still in school? Well, one of the ways to improve your mathematical skills is to play chess. So let's turn our attention to our two champions. How's it going, Garry and Tshepang? Who's winning?
We're still playing. It's a quiet game.
Tshepang, how's it going?
Oh, I'm playing as black, so I'm defending the whole game. It's tough.
It's tough. Okay, we'll pick that up later. Now you can talk to me. How did you become a maths and chess whiz kid?
I started playing chess at a very young age. My sister taught me when I was around about 3 years old. And at that time, it was just for fun, you know, I didn't even know you could compete in it. And at that time when she taught me, because she was also young, like 6 years, we played without kings because she couldn't explain how the king moved to me. So that's just how we played. And then afterwards, we realized that there's actually tournaments that can be played. You can compete for this, you know, get colors for it and travel around the world for it. And that's when I actually thought I could take this passion seriously and actually make something out of it, you know. And then I think I actually succeeded in it because before knowing that I could compete in it, I started loving the sport and having a passion for it. And then that's what pushed me to like strive further in it.
Garry, we were talking earlier about girls and boys who's better at maths. With chess, are boys better at it than girls? I mean, there are 1,308 champions in the world and only 27 are women.
Yes, that's fact. How many women composers you know? Or architectures? Now, there's certain areas and I agree that, you know, we are talking about centuries of certain, you know, distribution of functions of the society. And you cannot overcome them in 10, 20 years saying, oh, wow, everything should be solved. For instance, yeah, we know that women could be excellent in politics. Actually, when you look at some countries that were undergoing major transformation, they had women as their leaders. Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, Golda Meir. So clearly there are no, you know, limits. But there are certain things connected to training and also the sort of concentration of gender. So there's this naturally, you know, when you go back to chess, many boys take it because it's a competitive game, and you know it's more natural. So if we look at the results, you know, there's still a big gap. You correctly pointed out, but it's not as big as 50 years ago.
It can
50
be
years
done.
ago, Bobby Fischer was bragging that he could give an extra piece to any woman in the world and still to beat her. I'm not sure it was correct, but naturally today, when we look for best world players, they wouldn't have a dream about giving up a pawn and being so confident. So the fact is that Judith Polgar, she was the only one who ever made the top 10, but she was top 10, you know, several times, and she stayed, you know, as an elite player for, you know, more than 10 years. It proves that it can be done. So it's not easy. We still have no, I mean, except Judith, we don't have any female as a top 100 player, but it is, again, I say, it's not impossible. It's all about, you know, changing priorities, giving more training, and reconsidering, you know, sort of distribution of functions in society.
And exposure, of course. And Tshepang, maybe you'll then be in the top 10. Do you beat boys at chess, and how do they react to that?
Okay, at my school, actually, I do sometimes play against the guys at school because they feel like, oh, she thinks she's the best, you know, okay, let me prove her wrong. And then, okay, the game silenced them, and then they're like, okay. You know, so it's, I think for boys, more than competition, it's more of a pride thing, you know, losing to a girl is like losing your pride, you know, because they just want to prove that they're better in everything, you know, and chess is like one of those things that they just took to the heart, like, okay, I just want to be better than her.
Garry, have you ever been beaten by a woman?
I lost once to Judith.
And how did you feel about that?
Okay, it's when I won, and our score still is very heavily in my favor. Look, you know, I didn't treat her as, you know, as a female player. She was a top 10 player. So I lost to number 20 in the same tournament, or number 30. So it's
the gender was not relevant.
Exactly. At a certain point, you're no longer paying attention. You're looking at the chessboard and at the quality of the moves. I mean, she played well. I played poorly that day. So fine, it happened. So again, for me, it was not, you know, something specific. So again, we, from certain points, I don't know chess players treated Judith as a female player. She was one of the elite group. I think when she started, she was, 17, 18, just joining, and that was, everybody got, that's, how can you lose to her? But then almost everybody lost to her because she was there.
Are chess players geeks or nerds? Were you ever called that?
No, do you ask math teachers
I am
about
so
it?
going to ask
No,
her
but
that as well.
Look, yes, yet naturally, when you are engaged in something of such high mental activity, there are certain risks, naturally. And when you look at the history of chess, we had certain cases of like Bobby Fischer or other great players that were disbalanced. Also, I always say that the great literature didn't serve us well, because when you read Nabokov's Illusion Defense or Stefan Zweig's chess novel, so the image of a chess player is not something very attractive. But if you compare these numbers to numbers of great scientists, whether in physics or mathematics, who also lost their orientation in this world, I mean, chess record is nearly perfect. So I'm absolutely normal. Most of my colleagues, they are just open for the world and embrace other activities. So this is absolutely wrong image of the game of chess being played by the nerds, or by some smoking old man in the dark corner of the cafe. I mean, look at the shining example. So, and it's quite a young game. And now when you look at the kids playing chess, not only in their schools but also on the mobile devices, you just recognize that chess is the game that goes beyond all the barriers, including age and whatever.
Garry, but this seems to be more than just a game. You spoke about the intense mental concentration. Talk to me about that.
Yes, absolutely. You may call it a form of psychological warfare, because at the end of the day, you're not simply, comparing your notes or just trying to find the sort of ultimate truth. It's about winning or losing. So, and we just heard a story, where the boy's losing to her, it hurts. She's absolutely right. When I was, I've been playing chess, and every game I lost, and it didn't happen often. So it was some sort of a pain, because I recognized I made mistakes, I did something wrong, so I was kicking myself in my head.
Okay, so chess and education, should chess be made compulsory in the classroom?
Look, I mean, chess, the similarity between mathematics and chess is it requires discipline. You've got to focus, you've got to have patience, and the thinking that's required there. And I said mathematics is also a way of thinking. So there's similarities there. Introducing chess to schools in and of itself is not going to solve our problems, all our problems. It can help, and it will probably get some of the learners who you don't identify, or who might not have an opportunity to shine and develop their skills. They may be better. They may get even better developed when they play chess. So I would say, great, we should do that.
You feel strongly about this, Garry?
No, I agree that it's not going to solve our problems, and we should look at chess not as the game, not as a sport in this context, but as a tool to help other disciplines, first mathematics. Sure. Because I know that from all our studies, from different quarters in the United States, in Europe, and here in South Africa, that the best age to introduce chess is grade 1, 2, 3. And it's like opening gates for education for kids. It sharpens their minds, it learns them about legal framework and concentration, logic. The old tests show the dramatic increase in both in math and language. So for me, chess is a tool. It's like pre-education. So they have to get
at school?
Yeah, yes, I think yes. In the first 3 years, kids should have the opportunity to learn not chess, but actually through chess, to learn other things. Because many kids that enter school, especially in underprivileged districts, they don't know how to count. Many of them just don't speak English. So, but it's things like, center, spacious concept, up, down, left, right. So these things can be easily explained, because chess is a mathematically perfect game. Look at the square and moving the pieces. This is the tool that will make it easier for them to learn mathematics.
Tshepang, has chess helped you in those areas, the different subjects that you do at school? Or is it maths that makes you a better chess player?
I believe that since I started playing chess at a very young age, before I even went to school, that it actually gave me that mental capacity to be able to concentrate more, to be able to take in like lots of work and know how to handle it, to be able to like in the game of chess, you must have strategies in everything, right? So even when it comes to my exams, I must have a strategy like, okay, I'm going to study this time and that time. And apart from all the school stuff, you know, it also teaches you discipline, you know, because it's always one move at a time. You can't do 2 moves at a time, and you have to wait for your opponent to also move back. So that's just how it is also in life. So it's not only in school, but also out of school.
Does the language in which you learn maths matter?
It does matter. I mean, research says language, whether, irrespective of which language it is important in learning mathematics. And that's because mathematics is a way of communicating. Besides, of course, it's also a way of thinking, but it's a way of communicating. When you learn mathematics, you also learn ways of saying things, ways of communicating that are mathematical. Okay, so when you learn mathematics in a language that's not your own, you basically, or a language that you're not yet fluent in, you're basically learning a way of communicating in a language that you don't yet understand. But of course, research from Asia also shows that one of the reasons why the Asian children do well, they study in their own languages, but also the language itself makes it easy.
So it's not a stereotype that Asians are better at mathematics?
It's not a stereotype. There's a lot of research that's been done, and the issue is not just language. I mean, there's language, there's culture, there's discipline, there's a multiplicity of things that goes on. And research that on Asian children is not just coming from mathematics. Malcolm Gladwell talks about it as well, why Asian children are good at mathematics. I mean, and he makes a simple example that English is the most difficult language to learn mathematics in, because you've got to learn about 28 whatever words to count up to 100 or something like that. But in Asia, you just need 11, because you need 1 to 10 and then you need 100. But to count from 1 to 100, you need about 28 in English. Already, place value is in place.
So 22 is 2 10s and 2.
Exactly. So what you do, but that's not just a matter of counting. It's a matter, it affects place value, it affects addition, all the 4 operations, all that is in. And if you go to a primary school classroom, one of the basic things that children struggle with is place value. And place value will go across all the 4 operations. And so they find it difficult. But then fixing language alone doesn't solve the entire problem.
So I want to show you now a clip of this Japanese system of learning that teaches kids using an age-old abacus. Take a look at this.
By the time they're 12, these whiz kids are fast becoming human calculators. 12-year-old Kota Kazuka is top of the class.
I practice 2 hours on weekdays and 10 hours on the weekend. I want to become the national champion.
Along with the other high flyers, he can now do huge calculations with a purely imaginary abacus, manipulating nothing but thin air. Children like this show us that with enough practice, super-fast mental calculation is possible.
Hi.
Well, Garry, let's start with you. That was pretty impressive. But in today's tech-savvy world, wouldn't a game on the iPad do just as well?
Yeah, I think we have to introduce more gaming elements, because the kids should, gain an appetite for studying. So because the education looks difficult and also boring. So we just have to create a different image of that. And just give an example. So it's a couple of months ago in New York, I visited Success Academy, the network of charter schools in Harlem. And I asked kids there, because chess is mandatory actually there, and they're doing extremely well, outperforming some public and even some private schools. And there were about 50 or 60 kids, 7 to 10. And you can imagine demographics there, Afro-Americans and Latinos, 95%. And one of the girls, 9-year-old, she said something, that I always recall verbatim, because it was absolutely perfect expression. I couldn't do better. So 3 sentences. Chess helps me with my math, full stop. Math is very complicated, full stop. Chess helps me not to be afraid of complicated problems, full stop.
Well, that's wonderful. Professor Phakeng is very, very happy about that. What about teaching
maths, I imagine a lot of our answers lie with teachers. And when I remember how maths was taught, there was so much focus on the procedure and the formula and not how I can apply that, as Tshepang said, in many other areas of my life. What are your observations?
Well, it's true. I mean, the teaching is important because that's how the mathematics will be mediated to the learners. And that's why I say, even if you bring games into the classroom, it might not do anything because at the end of the day, it's the teacher who's going to bring it alive into the classroom. Making mathematics come alive is not only about making it relate or apply to the everyday life. It's also because mathematics it has to get abstract. It has to get away from the everyday at some stage, but it can still be exciting and interesting, engaging with numbers at that level, because it's about logic and it's about thinking. But what makes that, because in certain classrooms it happens, is the teacher, is how the teacher teaches, how they organize their lessons, the examples that they use, how they select the examples, not just randomly from the textbook without preparing, but thinking carefully about what comes first and what does this unpack.
Right.
What scaffolding does it provide for the next thing that I'll be teaching? And if I'm going to introduce some everyday context, how does this that I'm teaching help mediate that everyday context?
Tshepang, are you going to do something maths related with your career?
I'm more into the science field. So,
But because you're so good at it, do you feel under pressure to do something that's maths related?
well, I believe that I wouldn't mind doing something maths related because I do enjoy doing maths, and I'm more focused on like seeing what I have a passion in, because I believe that it's not about the payslip or anything. If I have a passion for something, I'll be able to do good in it.
Clever girl.
What are the implications, Professor? And I'll ask you as well, Garry. What are the implications for our economy if we don't get our students to be excellent at maths?
Well, firstly, we can't produce the number of and quality of scientists and engineers and technologists that we need. And if we can't do that, then we're crippling our economy, because who's going to carry us in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of other innovations that can come up and bring us revenue as a country.
In South Africa, the government has introduced something called maths literacy for those who are not that great. Isn't that enough?
It's not enough. You can't do engineering with maths literacy. And we need engineers. We need engineers who can electrify, knowing what they're doing. We don't want electric wires hanging over our heads when we walk around the streets. I mean, it's interesting even to solve social problems, you need mathematics. I mean, developmental economics, my view is that the best developmental economists are the ones who understand their numbers. Because if you don't, then how do you understand what it takes to solve the problems of the developing world?
Garry, your thoughts on that?
I can sign this, put my signature under the statement. I couldn't agree more. I think it's absolutely vital to have more engineers, especially for this country and for this continent. That is growing. So I just recently came back from a tour, visited Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Malawi, DRC, and Zimbabwe. So I just recognize there's the need in engineers is absolute. So, and that's why you couldn't get wrong with mathematics.
Okay, so what are we looking for? What should we be searching for? People who can just do maths, or the next rocket scientists for our continent?
I think we need the next rocket scientists for our continent. We need both, actually. And that's why mathematical literacy is a worry.
But rocket science is also about math.
Of course.
Rocket science starts with math.
So we need the rocket scientists.
We need the rocket scientists, and we need the...
Aim high, be ambitious.
Of course, the more we can get, the better, because it will help us get, get the people who can lead the world, and the people who can do the ordinary stuff.
We've run out of time, but I'm going back to school to learn maths and chess, and hopefully one day I'll meet the
But just
two
to
of you.
finally point this, when you look at every parliament now in the world, you see more and more lawyers and less engineers. Frankly speaking, I would rather trust, engineering side than legal side.
That's a sobering thought. We'll leave it there as well. Okay, I still don't like maths, but you are slowly changing my mind. But I do realize the importance of getting my youngster and all other youngsters to learn their sums. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and thank you to all my guests. Please tweet your questions, comments, and opinions to @AJSouth2North, or find us on Facebook. Do join me again next time on South2North. Till then, bye-bye.